Welcome to another episode of Going Homesteady. We're outside today. Today's been one of those, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes and it'll change days. We had a high in the 60s. It's probably in the 40s about now. We had sunshine in the morning, and then we had a brief torrential downpour, but now it's dry and windy. So I'm hoping you're able to hear me. But we wanted to be outside to highlight first some overarching principles of simplicity and efficiency, and then to cover just some basic, simple, practical guidelines for the important work of preparing firewood. Well, you've heard it said, and I think it's a wise bit of counsel, that when life gives you lemons, the right thing to do is to make lemonade. And when it comes to firewood, you don't want to go out into your woods or wherever your trees are and find a nice, sturdy, healthy, wonderful tree and chop it down. Nor do you want to go into your woods and find a tree that fell down 30 years ago and that is barely uh, keeping from crumbling into a pile of dust. And so what you have instead are opportunities that the weather gives you to deal with something that's come down, that was relatively healthy beforehand. And that's what we have. We're not even sure whether it was lightning, whether it was wind, whether it was something else. We weren't here when this came down. But sure enough, here it is down. And here's some of it already cut with the chainsaw. Now, that idea of efficiency is simply that. You take advantage of this thing that's appeared here and you put it to good use. It's not simply working to clean up, but it's cleaning up, and that which you clean up, you put to work. It's sort of like that old adage of Native Americans. You know, when they killed a buffalo, they used just about every bit of the buffalo for one thing or another. But what we're wanting to do is use this wood in every way that we can. In fact, one of the things that we found when we bought this property is the previous owners uh, tended to edge their little garden areas with little slices of wood like this. So some of these are going to go to replace some of those that are already there, but others are going to be used for firewood. And obviously, we have quite a bit yet to go to be sliced up. So now, what about the practical side? What can you hear the birds, by the way? Isn't it beautiful? Uh, what about how do you do this? Well, the first thing I want to emphasize is the importance of safety. I enjoy splitting wood. I don't enjoy running the chainsaw, but you really can't have one without the other. And so when I use the chainsaw, my mindset is don't die, don't lose a limb, uh, keep yourself safe. Remember what's going on here. Very, very sharp pieces of metal, just a few feet from my body, are moving very, very swiftly along this guide on the chainsaw. You've got to take that seriously. When we were out here working on this, I had Riley closer to me and Donovan a little farther away because Riley has glasses and Donovan does not. And so Riley's glasses are protected. I wore my sunglasses because it's safe and that's how cool I am. So, you know, I couldn't help but do that. So safety needs to be very in the front of your mind. That means, by the way, you don't do a chainsaw up here. It means you steady the wood that you're chopping. It means you learn how to use the blade itself. That is, it's not like taking a knife and slicing into a stick of butter. You want to use the tip of your chainsaw and work it in, around, and through as you're slicing these things up. Now, I think I mentioned before where you slice, and you can see that here in this pile, where you slice is a what's the word for it? A coming together of two things. One, you don't want to slice so big that whatever you're slicing won't fit where you're putting it to burn. Secondly, you don't want to slice through knots. So you got to think through, where's the next knot coming? I got to not cut on the knot, but I got to cut it small enough that it's going to fit. But you don't want to cut it smaller than you need to, because that just makes for more work. So think it through, think in advance, think about how it's going to, the weight's going to distribute. One of the things you can see here is we took off all the sort of side smaller limbs before we started working on this. The ones that were big enough to put into a future fire, we kept and cut into smaller pieces, and the ones that were smaller, we dragged over to the burn pile. So we're mindful about where we're cutting, we're mindful about how we're cutting, and very mindful about our safety. Now, when to cut and when to split, how to stack, where to stack. These are important things too. It's not simply, well, you cut off a piece of wood and you throw it in the fire. It's not that simple. And also, let me mention this about when you're looking for the right wood to cut. There are basically two key elements that you need to look at with respect to burning firewood. Maybe three. One of those is this: how hot is it going to burn? And it's a very simple way to figure that out. The more dense, the more hardwood a particular tree is, the hotter and longer it's going to burn. The more soft the wood is, the less long it's going to burn, the less hot it's going to burn, but the easier it will be to burn. But on the other side, the easier, softer woods, if you're burning them in a fireplace that has a chimney, they tend to be dirtier. They'll muck up your chimney more quickly. So cleaner wood is harder wood, but harder wood is harder to get burning and going. But once you do, it'll go longer and hotter. Does that make sense? So think that through. This is, I believe, birch, and I think it's kind of basically in the middle. It's not the hardest wood in the world. It's not the softest wood in the world. Maybe a smidge toward the soft side, maybe, but it's good, nice, balanced wood. For our purposes, apart from lining our garden areas, and apart from this house behind us, we don't have an indoor wood burning stove or even a indoor wood burning fireplace. So this wood that'll be used for burning will go in the outdoor fire pit that we have by the cabin. So we don't need to worry about whether the wood's too soft because we don't have a chimney. We don't really, I mean, it's a pretty big opening. You don't really have to worry that much about how big are your logs as either. So we're in good place there, and we'll be able to put this to good use. Now, there's still more to it, and that is the importance of seasoning your wood. Your wood will burn much better, much cleaner, much hotter, much easier across the board. Everything will be better if your wood has been seasoned. Now, seasoning wood doesn't mean coming along behind it and sprinkling salt on it or getting your pepper grinder and grinding pepper on it. No, seasoning wood is allowing it to age after it's already been cut. But there are two different ways you can look at it. You can either season your wood, I know this is pretty thin, but you can either season your wood pre-split, or you can split it and then season it. There are advantages to both approaches. If you don't split it until after it's been seasoned, you set this aside, you stack it, and we'll explain how seasoning works, but you set this aside, and when it comes time to split, it'll be a lot easier to split, because essentially what will happen is it'll dry up. If you've ever tried splitting fresh wood, particularly fresh soft wood, you know that what happens often is you take your axe or your awl and you go like this and you go right. You can hit exactly the right spot, and all it does is go splump. Splump, I think, is the right word for it. The blade will go in, but stop. It's like going into quicksand or mud, and it's not going to, doesn't go all the way through, and then you got to pull it out and try again, pull it out and try again. Whereas when it's good and dry, bap, it splits in two. The advantage of splitting first, however, is that it'll season twice as quickly. If you don't split your wood, you stack it like it is right now, it'll be a good year before this is ready to burn well. It's not saying it won't burn sooner, but to burn well and properly, it'll need a full year. If you split it, if you cut this log in half, you cut the seasoning time in half. It'll be ready to go in 6 months. So you can have longer time, easier work, or harder work, shorter time. Either way you want to do it. Now, how do you season it? Well, what you do, it makes perfect sense. What you want for seasoning your wood is to be in a place where the wood is able to receive the blowing of the wind without receiving the falling of the rain. So you want to stack it in a place where it's covered, but in a place where the wind blows through. Dear, can you show where we're going to park the tractor over there? If you see that opening, you could stack wood in that nice tall opening there in our barn, because the roof will keep the rain off, but the open doors on both sides will allow the wind to come through. If you don't have room in a building like that or a barn, another simple thing you can do is stack it wherever you stack it and just cover the top. You can do that with a tarp, and you cover the top, and that'll keep the snow off, that'll keep the rain off, but the wind will be able to blow through it. So that's how you want to season your wood. And you can, I guess, another advantage of splitting first and seasoning later is you can split it, stack it, let it season, and when it's done seasoning, you just pull right off the stack to burn your fire. Whereas if you stack it this way, you got to unstack it, split it, and restack it. So it's all often, as it often is, 6 of one and half a dozen of another. Now, one other, what's the word for it? One other hint. Try to enjoy this. Don't look at it as a chore. At the very least, look at it as exercise. But another way of looking at it, as the young kids say, is it's an opportunity to touch grass. That is, to go outside, to hear the birds, although you won't hear it with the chainsaw going, but to hear the birds, to be out in it. It's sort of the essence of part of what we mean by homesteading. There's just a great blessing to work with your hands, to again make something useful out of something that's not so useful. This fallen tree. So this is a project that I'm looking forward to. Now, the reason we're here and this is not done is the chainsaw gave out on me. And that's the one thing I really don't like. I can work outside all day long. You might not think it about me, but I can work outside all day long as my tools don't break down. But when they do, I get frustrated, and I had to stop and re-put the chain on and loosen this and add the bar oil and add the mixed gas, and eventually it just gave out on me, and I had to take it into the shop. So good tools, fresh tools, healthy tools, and tools well taken care of can make it a lot better. By the way, 5 minutes passed, and now the sun comes out. So as we said, just wait 5 minutes. Well, I hope this has been helpful to you. I hope that if you are on this journey with us, if you are learning about these things, that you will give this a try. Again, it's a small step, a simple step to just say, you know what, I'm not going to order firewood online, or I'm not going to buy my firewood at the grocery store. I'm going to make my firewood. And if you do that, I'd love to hear about your experiences. If you've got better more counsel that I should be sharing, that you can share with me, I would love to hear it. I'd love to hear your comments on this, which reminds us again about the importance. And one way to make things useful is liking our show, subscribing to our show, commenting on our show, sharing our show. I'm asking you to do this right now. Click on the like button, that's the thumbs up button. Click on the bell, that's the subscription button, and then say, RC, that is some of the finest split birch wood I've ever seen. And too bad that chainsaw gave out on you. Maybe next time get a Poland, or next time get a Husqvarna or something. Just, would love to hear from you. Join the conversation, and we look forward to visiting with you again next time. Thank you so much for being a part of this episode of Going Homesteady.